and thank you very much for coming back. I know it has been a long day, but it has been very inspiring, and I hope you can take a little something from this presentation. So as you just heard, I'm Maggie O'Neill, and I head up operations and marketing at Hearts Minds Investments. So Hearts Minds provides an avenue for everyday Australians and the financial industry to come together to have a collective social impact. So Hearts Minds, hang on, I don't want to press too quickly, but that's our logo. There's some hearts in it and a brain, you know. Okay, so Hearts and Minds. We consist of an annual investment conference which started in 2016 and a listed investment company which listed on the exchange in 2018, late last year, as Andrew mentioned. Both of these independently raise significant money for medical research across Australia. We work towards goals 3, 8 and 17, helping good health. Sorry, these slides just aren't really quite, here we go. Good health and partnerships for the goals. So before I go into that, I just want to chat a little bit about me to give you some context. I have over 5 years experience in the finance industry in a variety of roles, including asset management, wealth management and back office operations. All these roles, they really helped build my toolkit and my skill set to allow me to do what I do today. But there was this misalignment with me wanting purpose in my role. It kind of went very strongly in the rhetoric, making the rich richer. And that's all good and well, and it taught me a lot, but I wanted to do a little bit more in my day-to-day, and that's where Hearts and Minds fits in. I've been there since the start in 2016, and I love it. It develops me and challenges me professionally, but it has a really true impact that I can see. So, the conference. We started back in 2016 at the Sydney Opera House, not really knowing what we were doing, but since then we've had really quick organic growth and have become Australia's premier investor event. The industry marks the calendar well in advance, and we have a sellout event, well, we have had so far, touch wood, a sellout event every year. And it was founded out of a desire to raise significant money for medical research in a smarter way, so we could use the same sort of resources, but make a bigger impact. So the conference itself is a one-day event. It's fairly fast-paced, and we fit a lot in. But I think the really key part that I want to get to you is that we have the best and smartest investment minds in the world coming together to pitch their single best, highest conviction investment idea to you guys, or to the audience. And it's not only their idea on what they think will make money in the next 12 months, but it's why. It's understanding how they think and what makes them tick so you can walk away with some actionable ideas. I'm now going to play a quick 2-minute video that's going to give you a bit of a snapshot of the highlights from last year's event.
So the stock that I'm pitching you today is the quintessential owner-managed business. It's the $6 billion company you never really hear about.
We actually think it'll be the first company to make it to 2 trillion in market cap in the not too distant future. We're going to show you some math to back it up.
It's a compelling opportunity to own what we think is a very hard to recreate, very strategic asset.
One of the great investment strategies is to buy in drought and sell in rain.
The company has a very strong balance sheet, and we expect that to deliver you more than 40% return in the first 12 months.
The lesson from Apple is to thrive in the market, you have to update your product every 11 minutes.
The stock that I want to recommend to you today is a tracking stock.
The largest sports and entertainment product in the country.
This company could grow for a long, long time without running into any market sizing problems.
I'm not embarrassed to say I love network effects.
What's often the most important question when shorting a stock is how does this all unwind?
Each one of these is something that is life-changing and industry-crushing.
This is an amazing collaborative project, and we have our eye on the ball for Generation Australia.
It's been a great company for a long time, but things have changed.
Anybody who analyzes the company eventually is trying to analyze human potential.
I hope to be able to give you some insight into biological energy conversion and how that can play a role in your hearts and minds.
Data and connectivity has become so much forefront of our minds that it is getting increasingly politicized.
Today, China is building a new wall in cyberspace.
The hardest part of macro investing is distinguishing between what you want to happen and what's likely to happen.
It's great to see fund managers and the not-for-profit sector coming together for mutual benefit.
We're so proud to partner with Hearts and Minds. This is a remarkable initiative.
Thanks, everyone. So I think that gave you a pretty good taste of the context of the event, and that was really the inspiration behind the investment company that I'll start to go into. So when we were coming up with the conference idea, it was founded by finance industry veterans. They wanted to create an event that they wanted to attend and trusted that that would then bring the community along with it. So when we look at the finance community, they want finance content first and foremost, but they want that content to be exclusive. They want that to be ideas that they can't get anywhere else and that will give them a one-up on their competitors. They also want opportunities to connect. They want to be able to network with the who's who in the industry and rub shoulders with, the richest in Australia. Now, that sort of sounds like any other finance investor event. What's special about Hearts and Minds? Well, we are dedicated to raising money for medical research. We are first and foremost a philanthropic event, and attendees know when they step into our auditorium, our theatre, they've already invested in medical research in Australia. So we have already raised money before the day's even started, and we try and make sure the day itself is all about the finance content. It's not a fundraiser, we've already done that. So the event then becomes just a finance event that people want to attend. On the flip side, the medical researchers, they have needs too. They need corporate funding. At the moment, they're heavily reliant on traditional forms of funding, and that is governments and smaller scale events throughout the year. And that's just not enough, and I'll go into that problem a little bit later. But they also want a platform to be able to inspire and engage a new audience to share their discoveries and take new people along for the ride, and hopefully get some investment out of them too. So we've sort of looked at what was already out there, and we've taken the best of what's being done and combined that to have a really impactful event that gives a platform for both of these by putting their needs and their wants ahead. Like, that's at the very root of what we do. So the outcomes of the conference. Well, over the first 3 years of the event, we've donated over $10 million to medical research. That's driven breakthroughs in heart health, mental health, diabetes, and multiple sclerosis as well, just to name a few. And that's made possible through the corporate supporters that we've got, philanthropic donations, in-kind partnerships with suppliers who very kindly give their services and time for free so that we can keep our costs low. But I think most importantly, it's the industry collaboration, which is quite rare to see at this level. We've got all their competitors alongside each other coming together to have a collective impact. And also the ticket prices, we can't go without saying a thank you to the audience for spending quite a lot of bucks to come and hear the content, but that is mostly tax deductible and goes straight to medical research. Now, the conference, I mentioned we've got the best fund managers coming together and pitching their best investment idea. Now, those ideas have consistently outperformed the market. They're good picks. You'd hope so too. They're smartest, they're the best in the world, right? So that gave us a bit of an idea. We had demand from audiences and investors going, hey, we want to invest in these ideas, but we don't want to have to do it 10 times over. We just want to give you money once and be exposed to all the ideas. And so that's where we built an investment product that also had social good. So that's Hearts and Minds Investments, which is where I am now employed. So it's a listed investment company, otherwise known as a LIC in the industry, and it has a charity twist. It's a bit different to most LICs out there. Now, the company, as I mentioned earlier, was listed on the Australian Stock Exchange in November 2018. So we're very young. We've only been around for 8 months, but we've had a cracking start, which is nice to see. We raised $500 million when we listed on the exchange. That's what IPO stands for. And that's come from over 5,500 shareholders, which just goes to show that Australians want this sort of investment vehicle. They want to be able to do good, but also make some cash on the side too. We are overseen by an esteemed and experienced board of directors that ensure that we have a robust investment product first and foremost. That is our primary objective, to make sure we make returns for our shareholders. But we also want to turn that into a big donation too, and I'll take you through that in a minute. So what is a LIC? Some of you may already know this, but I think it's important to sort of step through how this works so you can really grasp the innovative and game-changing nature of Hearts and Minds. So LICs are companies that are listed on an exchange. It can be any exchange in the world. In our case, it's the ASX, the Australian Stock Exchange. So we're listed up there along BHP Billiton and Coca-Cola, so you can buy and sell shares in us just like any other company. LICs then go and invest in other companies or stocks, and we build what's called a portfolio of ideas. In Hearts and Minds' case, so HM1, that's our ticker code, we invest in the best ideas from the best fund managers. Now, these ideas come from the annual conference, but also from other core fund managers that have committed long-term to providing their intellectual property and their highest conviction investment ideas, so we can build a really good, concentrated investment portfolio. Now, most LICs, they charge a management fee. And that's because they're managing your money professionally and they're making active decisions on your behalf. So you pay them just like you pay a bank account service fee or whatnot. It's pretty standard, and that normally sits around 1% to 2% per annum. Now that's where the opportunity for Hearts and Minds to have social impact came about. Instead of charging those fees, we've got all the fund managers, the board, service providers, we've got a collective of people who have donated their time for free, their expertise, their ideas, so that we can, instead of charging that fee, donate 1.5% of our value to medical research each and every single year. Now, if we're trying to drill that down on an individual level, let's just say, for easy maths sake, you donate $10,000 into Hearts and Minds investments. That's looking like a $150 donation. That's a 1.5% of that, right? So that's pretty small and insignificant, by large, for the individual. You'd be paying that in fees in any other product anyway. That's going to medical research. Now, as we make money on that investment, that donation, that grows also. And so when you multiply that by all of our shareholders, you start to see an $8 to $10 million donation into medical research every year. And that'll keep growing as long as our fund keeps growing. So we need to make sure we keep putting in those great ideas. One of our directors, Jeff Wilson, was quoted in the paper saying that Hearts and Minds gives all Australians the opportunity to be invested in a wealth creation vehicle alongside some of the smartest investors in Australia. And I think that really sums us up. It's a bit of a win-win here. You've got a great investment product that makes sense for an equities exposure, but it also does good and it's accessible to everyday Australians. Now, why do we support medical research? Well, first and foremost, it's a great investment. We're an investment company, we look for good bets. It's estimated that $1 into Australian medical research returns about $3.90 in health and economic benefits back to the Australian population. So that's almost 4 times what you put in, and that's a good investment by any measure. Now, Australians are also great at research. Our scientists are ranked number 8 in the world, ahead of the US and the UK by publications per capita. So we should be backing their ideas. But only 12% of those projects or those ideas are getting funded. And so there's a big gap and a big role for corporate funding to play a role to help get those really cool, innovative ideas across the line. So the benefits of corporate funding, they include the ability for the researchers to focus on medical research. That traditional funding, applying for government grants, is really labour intensive and it's not guaranteed you'll get the money. It also allows for medical research institutes to plan long term. They've never really been able to think that way because you're so reliant on the grant coming in, and that's quite a frequent process to reapply. So we give them some sort of certainty about the amount and how often they'll receive money from us. And lastly, as I mentioned, it's the blue sky, innovative thinking. It's the other 90% of ideas that aren't getting funded. It's the wacky, risky ideas that governments try and sort of stay away of because they want a sure bet. But it's often the high risk that gets the high reward, and that's where government funding steps in. Corporate funding steps in. So I think it's pretty clear and evident how we help with goals 3 and 8, economic growth and good health. But I think the very essence and the power of Hearts and Minds is our collaboration and our collective community that are coming together to have a significant social impact. We've got so many people that are involved, and I think an example of that that's quite clear is the fund managers. They know they're very good at picking good stocks. So they give us good investment ideas so that we can build a good portfolio, and that as that grows, so does our donation, and we're making significant impacts through the dollar donation. So I think we've heard it plenty of times today. It's pretty clear and evident that it's the power of individuals coming together for collective good where we can make true waves in society. Now, the question that we've all been asked today when we came in the doors was, what world do we want to live in 2030? Now, whatever that world looks like to you, corporates need to come along for the ride, and we need to work together to do that, and Hearts and Minds is just one example of that. Thank you. Oh, and this is our community.